Welcome back to Tigs Bits. We've got a killer episode lined up with a guy who's been tearing it up in the world of food, content, and social media. I'm talking, of course, about our buddy, Mr. Austin Dennis. So if you've ever scrolled through TikTok or Instagram or caught yourself drooling over some next level backyard cooking, there is a good chance that you've seen his work. Austin is flat out mastered the art of making viral food videos. He's grown a huge audience and he's turned his passion into a business. But what is his secret sauce? How does he come up with his ideas? And what is it really like behind the scenes of content creation? We're going to get all of that today, from the kitchen to the camera and everything in between. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's get into it with Mr. Austin Dennis right here on Tigs Bits. Austin, thank you so much for joining us, man. How are you?
Good, man. Always good to hang out with you, and it's Friday, so it's a good time.
You can never go wrong. Can never go wrong. Well, it is good to see you, man. And we, number one, to let everybody know, we have recorded more than one show. We have done podcasts together. We've done lives. And y'all can go to Tigs Bits and check all of that stuff out at Tigs Bits Podcast on all the socials, or just go to tigsbits.com and you can find that. So, but the one problem that we've done, Austin, whenever we've done these, is we like to talk. We're good at it, and we just go on for way too long, and it's too much to edit down into a TV show. So I'm like, let me call old Austin up and see if he wants it. We're going to probably talk about a few things that we've already covered on some of those shows, but we're going to do it in a very structured environment today. And I think that is going to, it's going to be good, man. It's going to be good.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Well, let's just jump right into it. The first thing I want to ask, I think this is probably the best place that we could start too. What is the most important thing in the first 3 seconds of a video?
You got to hook them. It doesn't matter. The same hook's not going to work every time. My regular tagline that I use, it doesn't work every time. So sometimes that might be 5 or 6 seconds into the video. A visual hook is the most important thing. It can't just be bland, and it's hard to turn it on sometimes, but you've got to play with it. Sometimes it's not so much that your hook's bad, the recipe just didn't resonate with people. Maybe the visual wasn't that good, so you'll find yourself getting in a little bit of analysis paralysis because you think it was what you cooked, and it might not have been. It might just be one of those videos that might not go viral, and that's okay. Everything that you do is not going to go viral. If you get hung up on the views, it's gonna drive your engagement down, because then it's gonna be in the back of your mind, and you're not gonna be able to have fun creating content. So you just got to keep on looking at it, look at your data, see what works, and just keep doing what works. That's the best advice I can give.
I had a feeling you were going to say that hook. I mean, it's the Blues Traveler had a great song called Hook. The hook will bring you back, and that's it every single time. If you don't have that hook, you're not going to watch it. I guess you kind of have to think, how would you, like when you watch videos, how do you watch? What gets your attention? Right. Is that kind of what started it for you, of like, I'm going to do what I see that catches my attention?
That, and just diving in. There's a few people that I follow that know the ins and outs of everything content creation. And there's one guy, his name's Evan. I have to shoot you his page. He's got incredible insights about things that are so important. It's like a scientist for content.
Wow.
And he does really well. And I've applied most of the things that he puts on his channel. And everything that he's ever said works. And it just keeps me from having to scroll through and get advice from everybody. I think that guy's he's one of the best when it comes to how the algorithms changed. Do not do this, do this, the do's and don'ts of content. Those have helped a lot. Because you're putting a lot of time and effort. The last thing you want to do is be cooking for 3 hours and editing for 2, and you get 500 views. If you're going to do it, it's more of quality over quantity for sure.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you think that you see new content creators making when they're trying to go viral?
I talked about this last night on my Instagram story after me and you got through texting. There are a lot of people that see what other folks are doing, like the Brits cooking of the world and other content creators. They think they can just come in because they have experience with videography or with cameras and things like that. They can just do a really good voiceover. That's a very small percentage of content creators. And you can't just pick up a phone and start making content and expect if you do it the same way they do it, even if it's as visually appealing as when they do it, they have people that like them, not just the pretty shots that they create. So I find that a lot more people think that, well, I'll start doing content. That's not the case. I'm glad
Right.
that it happened for me by accident. I was just having fun, but that's my take on it for sure.
Let's dive in. Let's rewind this back for just a second and kind of start back to where this all began. So, what was the first video that really took off for you?
Oddly enough, it was more of a skit. I did how different states eat crawfish. And I had a different outfit, a different hat for each state: Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana. And I knew that would probably get some people's attention, especially in Louisiana, because when I did the Louisiana part, I didn't suck the head, so I knew that was going to irritate people. And a lot of times when I do videos, I intentionally do things that I know I'm going to get blasted in the comments for. And people are like, "Oh, you're, this, that, or the other," and I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I'll just let you have that one." But that was it. That one hit 1 million views in a couple of days,
Wow.
and then I learned from it how to apply that to cooking. So how can I make cooking fun? Because I was dry in the beginning. I was just talking to the camera. It was very scripted sounding. And my wife, even though she wasn't completely on board when I first started doing it, because this is different, right? It is hard to understand how your husband all of a sudden is going to start creating content for the internet. But she told me, she's like, if you could just act like yourself in these videos, I think it would help you. And it did. It was the best thing I ever did. So, yeah, of course, I add some emphasis on my words and the things that I do. And it's probably a little bit elevated than if you were in my backyard, me and you were hanging out. But it's close, I feel like. So it comes a lot more natural.
You have to have a bit of a voice, like a TV voice, radio voice, whatever. I mean, it's just the same thing. Obviously, you do this, you have to add extra emphasis at times, or maybe take something back a little bit. But if you're just going to keep bringing it between the hedges just like this, and you're going to put everybody to sleep. So yes, I get it, and you do an amazing job of that. You do a great job with the hook. That's obviously why you get millions of views on all of this stuff, but you always have a great hook, and you're always different, and you're authentic. I think that you can't put a price on authenticity at all in this game.
That means a lot for sure.
It's just the truth, brother. It's just the truth. How do you think your content has changed over time?
It's a lot less planned out for sure. When I was a year ago, I kind of mapped out my week. Now it's basically, it may be this time of day, and I say, okay, I'm going to run to Rouse's. I'm going to make a dip real quick. If it's a long cook for barbecue or brisket or something, obviously that takes time to plan out. But a lot of times I'll just say, I don't feel like making a big video. I'm going to make this cocktail. I'm going to make this dip. So it's not as planned now, especially with the business side, with the seasoning and stuff. I've kind of got to figure out how to keep my consistency going and keep rolling with views and engagement and make brands happy. But I've also got to have that balance to be able to have time to run the business and sell the seasoning, because it's not going to sell itself. I hope one day I get to the point where it sells itself. But for now, I mean, word of mouth and me making phone calls is basically the catalyst for my seasoning.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that brings us to a great point. So obviously you have a seasoning. A lot of folks who may be seeing this for the first time don't know who either one of us are, let alone where can they find your seasoning, and how did you get where'd you go from where you used to be to how you are here to making seasoning and content? Tell us that story.
So I was on the other side of this. I used to watch some of the big ones: Malcolm Reed, Cosmos Q, Heath Riles, Meat Church. If I was going to cook on a Saturday, I might pick up the phone on Thursday or Friday and start watching different recipes of how people do it. And then I would try to take little pieces of what everybody did. It was a lot of fun watching those videos too. I remember vividly remember how much I enjoyed watching how everybody does it. And then there was so much satisfaction in going in the backyard and doing something for the first time and it turning out really good. In the back of my mind, I was like, that'd be so cool to do that one day and have a seasoning, but it was a pipe dream at that point.
Sure.
So then once I built up a following, I realized that I'm promoting all these guys' seasoning that I, fangirled over years ago, and now I've got them a phone call away. And I'm like, well, if they want me to sell their stuff, of course, if I do it the right way, I should be able to put my feet on the ground and try. So that's basically how the seasoning came to be.
Yeah, and I can attest, everybody, his seasoning is fantastic. Tell everybody. I mean, it really is. I love it. I need some more, by the way. Tell everybody about them real quick and where they can find it.
So I got both of them right here. This is the Any Reason seasoning. This is an all-purpose rub. We're just selling the big bottles now, so it's a 16-ounce shaker, 12-ounce net weight. Any Reason seasoning is named for exactly what it is. I'm very literal, very specific. It goes on whatever you want to put it on, and it's great. The Nice and Slow barbecue rub, I wouldn't say just think pork or chicken. I would say anything you're putting on the grill, whether it's a butt, whether it's burgers. It does have a little bit more of a sweet profile for your barbecue flavor, but the Nice and Slow is more tailored for briskets and pulled pork loins, things like that. But the Any Reason is definitely the breadwinner of the two, but the Nice and Slow does really well too.
They are great, guys. Go get them. Where can everybody look? iCookYouLook.com. Go get them there. Was there ever a moment from when you started doing this until now that you flat out just wanted to quit?
Yes.
I figured that answer.
It happens about once a quarter. Not quit, but you get burnt out, and it just gets old. But then, I've done it enough to when I get burnt out that I know that this week I maybe need to focus on sales for seasoning more than I do content.
Right.
And recycling. We talked about this on a different podcast I did with you, man. When you get burnt out like that, go find some older content. You maybe didn't edit content as well back then. Re-edit it, do it a different way, put it out there, and take a break for a few days.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I know that I've had to do that on my end too, because it is a grind no matter what. It's a lot like being on Saturday Night Live or something. You're only as good as your last sketch. You're only as good as your last video. And it's like, okay, well, when's the next one coming?
Yeah.
Dang, man, I just need a break. Give me a second.
There's a big gap sometimes in between your last viral video. You might do a bunch that don't do great, and it feels good when you finally go viral again.
How does filming a recipe change the way that you cook?
Filming it, it's definitely more work. It's more, you got to think 3 or 4 steps ahead rather than when you're in the backyard cooking just for your family or for your friends. But it's a sigh of relief when I get to cook and I'm not being, pressured with filming. Cooked last night, cooked some steaks, and it's so fun for me now to, I'm thankful for this platform, all the platforms I'm on. I'm thankful for the engagement, the people that follow along. But I have a passion for cooking. I'm not as passionate when I've got that camera involved. When I'm just one with the grill, I know that sounds really corny, but it's like my drug. That's what I do, and that's what kind of resets me and grounds me. So it's a big difference when you got a camera. And you saw me film once. You could see it looks like a circus compared to what actually comes out in that.
That is very true. That is very true. I have been able to witness the insanity of the behind the scenes with Austin, and it is, it's film something, do this. Oh my God, I got to go get this. I didn't have this ingredient right. I got to go, blah, 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 and then film again, and then it isn't just like you're cooking a steak or you're just cooking on the grill, which is what I love to do. And I've noticed that some of the stuff, as I've been filming a little bit of food content and some cooking stuff, I'm like, this is a lot easier when you ain't rolling a camera. I mean, it's so much easier.
It is. And it's like you feel like it's kind of the comparison to when somebody's staring at you kind of while you're working. It's the camera staring at you, so your subconscious kind of starts wearing on you like, I'm being watched. Like, I have the power to edit this, but
they are they're looking at your...
How bad am I sweating?
How dirty is your grill?
It's like,
is it? Yeah. And that's been a hang up for me. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get crucified with my grill. Just crucified with it. Not because it's just banged up. It's been used, but I don't really care. It doesn't bother me.
Hey,
Could be a part of
that
the
could be a good
gimmick.
thing, man. It's sometimes welcome that. Like, you know, if your grill's too clean, somebody will probably say, "If you ever cooked on it, your grill's too dirty," they say, "Do you ever
There's
clean
no.
your grill?" So if it gets enough traction, somebody's always going to have something
What
to
would
say.
you say is what's a dish that you love to cook when no cameras are rolling? Like no cameras.
I would probably say a brisket. I like to cook a long. I like to
Yeah.
do a longer cook. Anything Cajun, pork and sausage gravy. We're actually cooking in Prairieville tomorrow at Galvez Hardware. So pork and sausage gravy. That's my go-to. It's easy. You can feed a lot of people. Cajun cooking is not nearly as complicated for those that are outside of Louisiana that watch it. So if you ever do feel passionate about cooking something different, follow a few recipes, mine or anybody else's you see out there. It's not as hard as you
Yeah,
think.
I agree with that totally. I've learned stuff from you. I've learned from Britt, Hal, everybody that is a food influencer in the state of Louisiana. There's a lot, the Cajun Ninja. You know, there's just a lot of great cooks, Stale Cracker, all these stuff. But I
Yeah.
think one thing, and I was watching our podcast with Brittany Camille, and she kind of went into it and talked about it a little bit. The one thing in Louisiana that everybody is kind of gets onto each other a little in a way, like I'm better than you and we do it this way, and almost overcomplicates
Yeah.
things a tinge that makes it like it ain't that hard. You can just simply buy some of Austin's rubs. They're not and you do have you'll tell, I'll let you reveal your surprise, but you know, you could buy some of Austin's rubs, watch some of his videos, use that stuff, do what he says, and you're going to have a hell of a meal. You're going to have a great meal. And the same with all of these others. But sometimes you can watch some of these content creators, and I think that they way overcomplicate this stuff.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
like
No
you don't
doubt.
have to drag the video on to tell us more about smoked paprika. Or, you know.
Yeah. And I would say Cajun cooking, and this is not a slight at Cajun cooking because everybody knows it's really probably the best in the, if not in the world, in the country. It it really is simple. I think those recipes are all derived from, you know, let's keep it simple, let's feed our family. All of the different gravy recipes you can make, whether it's pork steaks, pork and sausage, chicken and sausage, jambalaya. These the way you cook these dishes isn't overly complicated. It brown your meat a certain way. You've got to make sure you don't pull that too quick to get all that goodness in the pot for flavor. But other than that, like it, I would say it's one of the most simple things to cook once you start learning
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you got to have the equipment. That is one thing that I learned pretty quick. Like you making those rice and gravies and
Yeah,
those things, you have a Magnolite type pot or McWare or whatever,
yeah,
an aluminum pot. Like that thing is magic to that type of food for whatever
it
reason. It
is.
just works better.
Yeah, it's so
It
easy to
is.
clean
It
too.
is. Unless you, I don't have, my sink has a divider in it. So the big one is kind of, is not, I almost have to go outside with a water hose to clean that big one out. But yeah, you got to have those. And last question before we take a break. What is one food trend that is out there that you refuse to try or make a video of, I guess?
I would probably say party ribs. I get it. You can cook them quicker. They were a big trend last year. Uh, I'm not in a hurry. I'll cook my ribs the way I do them. It takes me 3.5, 4 hours. Probably could cut down on that time. I've just never gotten to where I've got to cook and I'm in a rush. So like party ribs seems cool. Cut them up, cook them quicker. But like I said,
Yeah,
I'm in no hurry.
I feel the same way, and I've never had fried ribs or party ribs that were like just fall off the bone insane good. Like you can get them if you cook them a little slower, wrap
Yeah,
them, whatever you want to do to get them. But yeah, I agree.
yeah.
That's a good one. That is a good one. We're going to talk about the science of Austin's social media growth and get the real strategy from him right now on how he's gained followers and has gotten the engagement. I think this is probably the meat and potatoes, no pun intended, that everybody was wanting to get to in this show. So, how do you decide what platform to focus on: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? How do you make that decision on where to focus?
I focus on all of them. I probably comment on Facebook and YouTube less than any other platform. Uh, Commenting back to your videos when people comment, liking their comments, that goes a long way for engagement. And there's something built in the algorithm to reward that for a creator. But no, there's not a specific strategy. I post everything that I'm making. If I stay under a minute and a half, it can go on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If it's 60 seconds, I'll put it on YouTube Shorts, or I'll edit the video down. It'll be a shorter version for YouTube. But you're already making the content. It doesn't make any sense to not put it across all platforms. I think now at Facebook we're 360 something thousand. TikTok's like 412 or whatever, and then Instagram's at 282 or whatever. Like, that's a lot of numbers when you add all of that together. So it'd be crazy to have content and not even put it out there.
Yeah, totally. We do the same on the show. We put it out everywhere. Engage a little bit differently on the different platforms. Like on Facebook, it's definitely different. We have a different crowd, our show does, over there than we do most other places. So I wanted to ask that because I find it interesting. And don't you wish that YouTube would just make theirs a minute and a half? Wouldn't that make life so easy for everybody?
Yes. Yeah, and I also wish that their format was the same as Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, because you got to record completely different. You've got the 9:16 on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and you've got the 16:9 ratio for YouTube. And there are people out there that have tripods and 2 cameras and all that, but it just seems overly complicated. I'm not going to say I'm never going to do that in the future because I need to, but at least successful platform for sure. For me,
I think it's tough. It's tough to grow over there. It's just harder to get eyes on it as much as it is some of the other ones. What's a small tweak that can instantly make a video perform better?
That's tough. I wouldn't say there's necessarily like 1 or 2 things that you can do. I would like to tell people that, this isn't for everybody. And I don't mean that from an arrogant standpoint, but don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to start making content and expect that it's going to work out. We kind of talked about that at the beginning. But have confidence, be self-aware. If you're good at it, you'll know. They'll let you know for sure. And just try to have fun with it, and follow people like I do that give you the keys to the kingdom on how to stay with new trends and algorithms, how this is working, how to really set your hooks up. Because I learned a lot of this on the back end after I figured it out, and I'm like, oh well, I do that. I wish I'd have known that before I was a year in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That is a question that I do have for you, is what is something that you wish that you would have done differently from the day one to now? What is something that, if you could go back and tell Austin Dennis, first video, you need to do it like this, what would you say?
Number one, I would say loosen up and just be yourself. And I talked about that earlier, how I finally started just being myself in videos. And I didn't post on Facebook or Instagram until I was like almost a year in. And people would send me all these friend requests. I'm like, this is my personal Facebook. I'm not going to be your friend. And then I had to get somebody to tell me, like, how do I set this up where people could follow me? And Facebook and Instagram grew really quick because I could pick and choose out of all my viral videos which ones to put out there. So they both grew to 100,000, I feel like, in a couple of months. So I wish I'd have gotten on there in the beginning, because obviously I was on TikTok first. My biggest followings over there with over 400,000. I'd probably be closer to those numbers on Facebook and Instagram too. But hindsight's 2020, man. You just gotta do your best to be proactive and kind of try to stay ahead of stuff like that in the future. And I feel like I do a little bit better job now.
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. What do you think's more important, views, watch time, or engagement? Views.
Because views are the tell-all. At the end of the day, if the views are up, your engagement's up. If the views are up, then you did a good job with the video. Unless it's that one-off video that everybody really hated, that's probably not going to grow you a lot of followers. But hey, look, the brands care about views at the end of the day. Obviously, engagement's tied to views, But that's the main thing. Like if you're going to go into business and do this like I have, you're putting yourself out there, and it's a in a sense it's a job interview for a brand
True.
constantly. So you've got to remember that when you're putting content out. Stay the hell away from politics and just do your stuff.
That's it. One last question. We'll wrap up here because you couldn't have lobbed that up for a better softball, because when we come back, we're going to talk about business. But what is your biggest advice for someone that's trying to grow from 0 to 10,000 followers?
Consistency. You just got to keep being consistent, and you've got to evolve quick. It can't be, I learned something in a month and I finally did it. If it's not working, don't keep on throwing, what at the wall to see what sticks. Try something else. Don't be hard-headed. Don't be the Les Miles of content creation, 3 yards and a cloud of dust, because that's why he's no longer coaching college football.
That's exactly right. I think that is fantastic advice. We're going to dive into the business of being a content creator. We're going to see how learn how Austin has turned content creation into a full-time career right now. So first of all, Austin, let's just jump right off into, how do you decide which brands you want to work with, number one? And we'll answer that after you say, how do you get to a point where you start to work with brands? Because we know that you are, but how do you get to that point?
Well, I was fielding all of the calls and emails from different brands in the beginning by myself, and I didn't want to get an agent. I had been told by several people that I should. So I negotiated all my rates. Fast forward to now, I've had an agent for about a year, and I was negotiating what I felt like was a very good rate to do videos, and I was way low. So that helped. And I think like picking and choosing brands, obviously if they fit my content, it's good. And I'm fortunate enough doing the cocktails and doing the cooking and the dips. I have a little bit more I have a broader spectrum of brands that I can do stuff for. The Chevy thing was wild. I didn't expect to do something like that, but the style of the way I was doing my content resonated with somebody from GM that liked it. So I was fortunate enough to do a couple of videos for them. But it's easier to pick and choose when the ones that will pay you what you deserve, because they're brands you want to represent anyway. Nobody's coming in with a big budget unless they're a well-known brand. The small companies, they're going to pay you peanuts to do a video for them. And I have to stay away from those because I'd never turn my camera
that's
on.
where that kind of leads into my next question is, have you ever turned down a brand deal? And if so, why?
Turned down brand deals 3 or 4 times a week. Either budget problems or sometimes their deliverables are too much. Like they think that they know better than I do for content, and they want it to be too ad-like. If they don't give me somewhat of creative freedom, money's great, but at the end of the day, I want to represent the people that follow me too. And if it I'm not selling tampons, you know what I mean, or tights. I get all these emails all the time to promote like fitness stuff and like fitness supplements. And I'm like, have you ever seen, obviously the answer is no, you've never seen my content. Daddy's not going to the gym every day. And I'm not taking supplements to stay fit. So it's a lot of weeding all that out, but I've got a great manager. If anybody ever wants to reach out, go to my website, hit me in an email. I'll be happy to send her your information. But we have a really good working relationship, and I'm lucky.
That's awesome. Sure. What's the biggest lesson that you think you've learned from sponsorships?
Every single brand video that you ever put out is a job interview, essentially. So don't take the check and get all happy and just go out there and throw a video together. Now that you got to submit a concept to them. Even after you sign a contract, they've got to approve it. They can ask you for a reshoot if they're not happy with the content. But just remember, every time you do a video for a brand, you want those numbers to look good. So don't just grab that check, because it might be the last one you ever get, especially from them. But that's those are the videos that are a little more tense around here. Those are the videos where I don't need anybody around me. I need to lock in, because this is
Right.
my future. It's what puts food on the table. So you got to do it right. You only have one shot, so
How do
got to
you
do it.
develop like one of those spots that you're going to do? Like, what's your creative process to figure out what they're looking for?
They'll send, like, if it's a Fourth of July campaign or if it's a new product they're launching, kind of what their talking points are that they're promoting, and then you've kind of got to figure out how to get through all that and make
Hmm.
it fit you and it be organic without sounding like you're plagiarizing what's on their website. Uh, I enjoy that. That's the fun part about it. I'm not a songwriter, but I always say when I'm giving a brand a concept, that's like my songwriting. I've got to figure out, read through all the stuff that they want, and then I got to figure out how to morph that into what I do. So not only does it get good views, but it makes them happy they worked with
Yeah,
me and they want
that
to call
makes
me back.
sense. Makes sense. What's one thing that people don't realize about making money as a creator?
As far as what?
Just
Like,
anything, I guess what was something that they don't realize? Maybe I guess how hard it is for number one that it is, but to be able,
yeah.
I guess probably I can maybe answer that of how hard it is to make a living from it, to start to get paid from it. We're on the
Yeah.
beginning stages of that journey where you've been
Yeah.
in that journey. You've gone through which is why you're a great person to have for us to be able to talk to get ideas, to understand what's going on. So I guess I think a better question would be, what is something that is surprising about being a content creator and making money that people would be surprised about? Like what's
I just think there's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes than people would ever realize. There's way more phone calls. There's way more pitches that my agents do into brands, and a lot more that goes on that people would never know. And people ask me sometimes in my lives, "Hey man, what do you do for work?" And most of the time, I don't answer. I say something stupid because it's like, I do a lot, but I mean, if you got 30 minutes, I can tell you, but it's not just turning on this camera and talking
right.
to you for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a great answer. All right, Austin, let's talk about the science of seasoning and your cooking content, how seasonings and all of the unique food ideas help you to get this viral success. What is your go-to seasoning combo for any dish that you make? Pretty much.
Well, the low hanging fruit would be both of mine, but obviously when you're doing Cajun cooking or you're doing certain things that I haven't launched seasonings for yet, that'll be down the road in the future. I love Malcolm Reed's seasonings, Killer Hogs, his steak rub, his brisket rub, his AP. Uh, Everything in his lineup's good. So I would say there's nothing that he has that won't fit something that you're cooking. He's the only person that I really represent, unless you're a smaller brand, a little Cajun company like Cajun Kick. I've done some videos for him. I'll plug Brit's Cooking in there because I like her. But really, from the affiliate side, Malcolm's is the only one that I use with Killer Hogs. But my Any Reason seasoning, I mean, even if you're pairing another seasoning with it, there's nothing you can put that seasoning on that it won't complement.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That dude's got it going on. He's got it right for sure. What's a seasoning that people overuse or use the wrong way?
Tony Satcher's for sure.
I agree.
I mean, but look, some people, like, I would say it's probably the older group from Louisiana. They grew up with that heavy salt, heavy sodium taste. You're not gonna adjust those taste buds. To me, I mean, I don't even have Tony's in my cabinet. Like, it's not for me, So probably Tony's. I think people just get carried away with salt in general with seasonings. You don't have to have that much salt to make it taste good.
Right. I think using salt after is always a better approach. Like I like to get my food to a point of where it's just right, but I always can be like a gumbo. Like it could use a little more salt, but I know that whenever it cools off and the next day, if you add salt to that at that point, the next day it's going to taste like salt water, basically, so it's a fine line.
Yeah.
It is a fine line, but.
And I've told people this before too. Like growing up in Alabama, it may be a little different, but you may remember this when you were a kid. We had salt and pepper on the table. So if something was under seasoned, I mean, it was typically going to be salt or pepper. Just don't over season it. You got a chance to fix that at the end. Don't make it taste like a salt block. You can't. It's not like you're going to go figure out how to take the saltiness out of the food.
It's true. You can't rewind that. If you screw it up, you can't do it back. God knows I've messed stuff up in my life and made it too salty, but I think you're right. I think that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
That happens to me when I'm using like a different Cajun seasoning that I hadn't used because I eyeball it. I know how much to put on my meat, but some of them are just way more potent than others. So you've got to. That's why it's good to stick with just a few go-tos, because then you learn like this. I don't need to measure this out.
Exactly. Exactly. You learn how to use your any reason season, and you know exactly how much to put on whatever it is that you're going to use that for. And you learn. I love that stuff. Yep. What is the weirdest but best food experiment that you've ever done?
Cow tongue.
Okay. Yeah.
We did cow tongue about 6 months ago. And luckily for me, my father-in-law did the whole process of cleaning it and getting it ready and everything. So I just had to cook it. Texturally, if I didn't know it was cow tongue, the texture thing wouldn't bother me. I'm not a texture person. That kind of stuff doesn't typically bother me. But just because I knew it was a tongue, it took a couple of chews to figure that out. But it was, I would say it was like the texture of a good filet.
Yeah. So did you...
It's not. There's no flavor to it. It's just whatever you put in it.
I've had it. It tastes like roast. This tastes like a roast to me. I mean, how did you cook it?
I did a reverse sear on the grill. I cooked it to a certain temperature. I've only done it once, so I'd have to go back and look at how I did it and what the internal temperature was. You cooked it like
a steak?
Just got it to a certain temp.
You cooked it kind of like a steak? Okay.
Pretty much, yeah. I believe that the temp that everything was pointing to was higher than a steak, so it wasn't like rare or anything. But it was good. Everybody that was eating it was shocked, including me. I'm like, I would never do this. I can see how this would be good if you were, poor on the farm years ago. Let's use every bit of this cow that we can. It makes sense, but no, cow tongue won't be added to the arsenal over here.
You're good.
For sure. Yeah, I'm good. I'll cook hot dogs before I do that.
Can you tell when a video is going to do well just by looking at the recipe?
No.
I wouldn't think you could. Otherwise,
I'm always surprised. Most of the time, I'm surprised when stuff goes viral. It's true. Now, there are times where I've looked at a video after I've edited it and thought, like, if this doesn't go viral, like, what is viral anymore? But that's rare. That's rare for me to see that on the front end and know that it's probably going to perform really well.
Get some closing thoughts and start to wrap this up a little bit. Austin, where do you see, because you have grown rapidly in 2 years, a little over 2 years, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Well, hopefully we're at 1 million across every platform by then, hopefully a lot sooner. I hope to be in all 50 states with my seasonings, everything that I bring out between now and then too. I'd love to be able to focus more on the business side of it and just do content a few days a week, maybe 3 videos a week, and we can use some of that old content to keep that recirculating. But I'm a business person at heart. I never knew that I would be, but deep down inside, I'm more passionate about seeing the business go in the right direction. This is something I want my son to inherit one day. So this has always been a long-term goal. I'm in no rush to do it. I want to do it the right way. So if a distributor, like I had a meeting with a distributor a couple of weeks ago, sounded like they might get me in their 200 grocery stores, but I don't know yet. I'm not going to be upset if I do get in or if I don't. I know it's eventually going to happen. It's not my main source of income, but I would like, the content and the brand stuff is up here. The seasoning's right here. I would love for it to get here in the next 2 or 3 years. And then hopefully one day,
right.
That's the dream.
That's a great dream. That is a great dream. I love that, man. I love that. Well, Do you have any final messages for any aspiring creators or food influencers out there before I let you go?
Just have fun. I mean, there's going to be enough stress with it, but when you get a chance, take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. If you're not dependent on it for income, just go out there, have fun, cut up, cut jokes. People like to be entertained, and you'll be
That's
just
perfect. Fine. Very well said. Well, Austin, this has been an awesome conversation. Your journey's inspiring. Your content is freaking top tier, and we can't wait to see what is next for y'all and for you. So if you haven't already, go follow Austin Dennis on all of the socials and go to iCookYouLook.com and go hit him up. Go buy some of that seasoning.
Always good to be with you, Tigs. You know I enjoy it, buddy.